The last little bit of lecture here that's pretty brief this week is to talk about Amalia Ulman as one of these artists that is very much part of the fourth wave in these conversations about social media with one of her works. And it becomes famous in 2014 as she puts on this social media performance called Excellence and Perfections. Where it's a scripted performance where she amasses this massive amount of followers and kind of built this sort of project and idea around sort of inventing and utilizing the social media archetypes that sort of builds this story that she's created and manufactured. So it's a scripted performance where she critiqued norms of identity and gender construction in a post-internet world, how that relates to a young woman's identity, and how women are supposed to portray themselves online. So it's interesting that a lot of these conversations start with why she created this work was that she had this this bus accident that she was riding at 1:45 a.m. traveling from New York to Chicago. The Greyhound bus Amalia Ulman was riding collided with a tractor trailer in White Deer Township, Pennsylvania, killing one of the passengers and injuring almost everyone else. And so she had this really tragic event of this accident and how she had to kind of learn to walk, and all these things were happening while she did this Instagram performance. And so she was having this really sort of massive change in her life while also putting on this kind of weird performance on social media that she kind of hid beneath all of these sort of photographs. But it becomes interesting that this conversation about her stems out of how all of these great artists kind of made this their work after experiencing this massive tragedy. So this is sort of in the background of this project that she experienced this really horrific event and then created this work hiding sort of the element of this tragedy. So she started it in 2014, uploading this caption that read Excellence and Perfections, and for the next several months, she conducted a scripted online performance via her Instagram and Facebook profiles as part of the project. She went an extreme, semi-fictionalized makeover. And she started with these kind of archetypes. So the first archetype she used was the cute pink LA Tumblr girl. She mostly used flower emojis, this is kind of the most like her original self. She did a lot of kind of advertising for different companies, but started out with this kind of image of herself that was relatively similar to who she feels like she is, kind of pink and pastel-y, but still very much kind of fake in the sort of way that she curated it. Sorry, some of these images are kind of bad and pixelated, but some of the advertisements that she did were real, like this Coco Chanel one where she used sugar to make the Coco Chanel symbol, while others were in fact faked, but she did engage in some actual money-making branding within this project as well, so that's kind of a conversation about fake and non-fake elements as well. And she then moved into her phase 2, which was this ghetto chic crazy bitch type that was modeled after Kylie Jenner, in which she used designer goods, makeup, showed off her body. People were really commenting a lot about her sexuality, and posed in fancy hotels, and then goes to kind of body modification and plastic surgery as well. So very much kind of in this more LA designer label, but with sort of a more ghetto-esque twist, I guess, kind of relating back to this Kylie Jenner type on social media. So then you start to get kind of these images and messages that she's going to be um, having surgical procedures and um, plastic surgery. And so you start to see images of her talking about that, and in doctors' offices, and that she's working hard to have this surgery. So you have her even posting images that she's had the surgery and that she's waiting to take the bandages off, and wanted to see sort of how people would react to that. And then eventually, after these plastic surgeries, she has a public Instagram breakdown where people are kind of making fun of her, and while other people are supporting her, and you see kind of the reaction of the different fans to how she behaves. So then eventually having sort of phase 3, in which she has this mental breakdown and then becomes a life-loving HIPAA yoga type, did I say HIPAA? Hippie yoga type figure, in which she's meditating a lot, posting images of eating healthy, recovery, talking about all of these things as well. So after all of this work, she ended up revealing that this whole thing was a performance, and really talked about kind of this lifestyle that she put on and the fakeness around it, and became sort of this massive, powerful work, because a lot of people were kind of duped into believing that it was real, that it was who she was and what she was experiencing. So she talked about all these kind of ways that she thought about it, thinking about how it was a story about a girl dreaming to become a model, and she goes and lives in LA, and she runs out of money, splits up with her boyfriend, and falls into this loophole of becoming a sugar baby, but feeling okay because she has money. And then it turns darker. She starts taking drugs, goes to rehab, and then goes back to her family. So the project often reveals a lot about how people are willing to believe everything that we see online, and that how easily she is to become popular on social media by uploading photos that obey popular beauty and behavioral standards. The elaborate pictures that she uploaded, either of herself posing or of luxurious hotels, diet foods, packs of money, and other stuff, compose an identity fully lines with certain ideals. And she talks about how she had to kind of make these things look real, like sneaking into luxury hotels to take selfies, visiting H&M to buy and return clothes for her character, and taking pole dancing classes, and to kind of manipulate the audience with these narratives. She also talked about how female artists, as an artist herself, feel forced to be working on social media and sort of branding themselves. And so she wanted to kind of play with those constructs as well, which I think is kind of felt by a lot of artists, right? You have this need to kind of have a social media image to be able to sell your work and make yourself kind of popular. And so you see that kind of talk in that as well, and how artists kind of need to promote themselves in very particular ways. And additionally, she's selling these products, some of them real, some of them not real, to be able to sort of get money, but to also fake it as well. So like this Coco Chanel one, I believe is fake, on the left, but the other one on the right is, maybe they're both. No, I don't remember. I think the Chanel one is fake and the other Coco Chanel one is, this one is real. It's interesting to me to read a lot of the things that she wrote about this work, and that she was living in cabins and trying to get better, from some of the trauma that she experienced, and how it was kind of a way to get back to normal. But also on the same line, I am curious if that had an effect on her and made her feel a particular way, because even though these things were fake, and she was using them to analyze people, does it then make her feel like a particular way? And I haven't really found a lot about how she felt about the performance, as a whole, because I'm sure that in some way it made her think about her self-esteem and who she was too, in reading the comments as well. And even as she had these kind of fake various cosmetic surgery procedures, some of them were real. And so how does this feed into constructs of the male gaze, and how the way that people react, and that she was doing some of them and not other ones? And so there's this interesting conversation about how she didn't have the boob job, but she did have $2,000 to have a non-surgical nose job and a face filler, in which she felt even kind of more awake, and that she looked prettier. And so there's all these constructs about that as well. So it definitely feeds into a critique of challenging the male gaze, even though I think that she could be affected by these things in the long run. She actively challenges the male gaze that transforms women into objects, sometimes exalted, sometimes scorned, but never sees them as equal subjects. This certain male gaze that is responsible greatly for the ruling beauty standards is internalized by many women and forces them to change their body through painful and sometimes castrating surgical procedures, or according to their perverted notion that beauty is pain. And you can see this when men making sexual commentary on her pictures. It's hard to see a lot of these things now because the images don't kind of turn out, and you can't see all the comments, but obviously there's people saying sort of sexually graphic things as she kind of feeds into these constructs of the male gaze as well in her work. So she's obviously kind of thinking about the way that women are treated on social media and critiquing that as well. It's also interesting that when she revealed it to be a performance, some people continued to pretend that the profile was real, even though she said it wasn't. Other people were really mad and called her a fake. There was this kind of painful disenchantment. Their desire to believe in this deity that seemed so close to their ideal was so strong that they ignored everything else. So they were willing to ignore that she said it was fake, because they kind of believed it was real for so long that they weren't willing to believe what she was saying. So she talks about that it wasn't just a route towards a brand we build as a product through social media and an aestheticization of everyday life towards which we are being led in order to make things more photogenic. Identity on the internet is not a vital repetition of our uniqueness, but the representation of a pattern and the simulacra of the projection of a model. Ulman refers to Facebook as an area where people don't express themselves as they are, but as they learn to be by conforming to their previous choices that Facebook processes algorithmically. Identity on the internet is not a vital repetition of our uniqueness, but the representation of a pattern and the simulacra of the projection of a model. Like I said previously on the last page. I don't know why I put that in there twice. And then we can raise the question, is the individual a passive automation that simply reflects and duplicates its environment? So going back to conversations, I think we've talked about it in this class, of the social dilemma, that people make and kind of curate these fake profiles of their life and kind of make them look a particular way when they're not, which can cause a lot of ways in which women think about their bodies and a lot of self-esteem issues like this film talks about, and the sort of manipulation of identity through social media and how it interacts with you as well, and kind of sells your sort of change in behavior. So I know this is sort of a quick presentation, but I wanted to sort of get you through some of these ideas, and I think they're relatively familiar to you as we sort of move into the social media era that we're in right now. So I hope you guys have a great Thanksgiving and enjoy the time off, and I will talk to you guys in 2 weeks.